How to overcome fear of speaking in public, classroom, and meetings. A guide to speaking fearlessly. Welcome to the Easy English Stories channel, where we explore how to improve not only your language skills, but also your confidence in using English in real-life situations. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most common challenges English learners face: fear of speaking in public. This could be in the classroom, during meetings, or even in casual conversations with colleagues. Fear of public speaking is something that almost everyone experiences at some point, but it doesn't have to hold you back. Whether you're a student, a professional, or someone who simply wants to improve their speaking abilities, this video is for you. We'll break down why this fear happens, give you practical strategies to overcome it, and provide examples to make everything clear and actionable. By the end of this video, I want you to feel empowered, equipped, and ready to speak fearlessly, no matter the audience. All right, let's get started. Understanding the root of the fear. Before we dive into solutions, it's important to understand the root cause of fear when it comes to speaking in public. This fear, often referred to as glossophobia, is actually quite common. Studies show that up to 75% of the population experiences some level of anxiety when it comes to public speaking. Yes, you heard that right. 3 out of 4 people feel the same nervousness that you do when standing in front of others. Why is that? There are a few reasons. One of the main reasons is the fear of being judged. When we speak in public, especially in a language we're not fully confident in, we become hyper-aware of how we are being perceived. Are people understanding me? Did I make a grammar mistake? Is my accent too strong? These thoughts spiral in our minds, creating more anxiety. The second reason is fear of making mistakes. We've all been there, worrying about mispronouncing a word or forgetting what we were going to say. Now, think about this. Have you ever noticed that most of your anxiety comes before you even start speaking? It's the anticipation of the event, rather than the event itself, that usually creates the most fear. But here's the good news. Fear can be managed. It doesn't have to control you. Let's talk about how. Practical strategies to overcome fear. First, let's look at some practical ways to manage fear before you speak. One of the most effective strategies is preparation. I know you've heard this before, but let me explain why it works. When you're prepared, your mind is less likely to be overwhelmed by fear. Let's say you have a presentation in class or a meeting at work. You know your material well, you've practiced it, and you feel ready. Now, you may still have nerves, but your confidence in the content will act as a safety net. It's like driving a car. If you know the road ahead, you're less likely to panic when a curve comes your way. This means taking the time to prepare what you're going to say, practice it out loud, and even record yourself. Recording is particularly useful because it allows you to hear your voice, notice any areas of improvement, and get used to the sound of your speech. Here's a concrete example. Imagine you're about to give a 10-minute presentation in class about climate change. If you don't prepare, your fear might skyrocket because you're not sure what you'll say, or worse, you're afraid you'll go blank. But if you've practiced 3 or 4 times, rehearsing the key points, your confidence will increase because you're familiar with the material. In fact, studies show that practicing for just 15 minutes a day can reduce anxiety by 20%. That's 1/5 less fear. Another strategy that works wonders is deep breathing. I'm sure you've heard of this one too, but again, let me explain why it's so effective. When we get nervous, our breathing tends to become shallow and rapid, which sends signals to our brain that something is wrong. This makes the fear worse. By taking slow, deep breaths, you are actually telling your brain that everything is okay. Deep breathing has been shown to reduce stress hormones, such as cortisol, by up to 50%. That's a huge drop. Let's try it together. If you're in a safe, quiet space, take a deep breath in for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. And exhale for 4 seconds. Try that a few times before speaking, and you'll notice a significant difference in your anxiety levels. The power of focusing on your audience. Now let's talk about another key to overcoming speaking fear: shifting the focus from yourself to your audience. One of the main reasons we feel anxious is because we're too focused on ourselves. We're worried about how we look, how we sound, and what others think. But the truth is, the people listening to you are far more focused on what you're saying than on you personally. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're in a meeting at work and you have to present a project update. Instead of thinking, "What if I mess up?" shift your focus to, "How can I provide useful information to my colleagues?" When you focus on delivering value to your audience, your fear decreases because your attention is no longer on your perceived weaknesses, but on the content. Here's a story to illustrate this point. A friend of mine was extremely nervous about speaking in front of a large group at a conference. He spent weeks worrying about how he would perform. But just a few days before the event, he decided to shift his mindset. Instead of obsessing over how he would be perceived, he asked himself, "How can I make this presentation useful to the audience?" On the day of the conference, he focused entirely on delivering valuable insights, and the result was amazing. Not only did he feel more relaxed, but the audience also responded positively. This shift in focus can be incredibly freeing and helps to alleviate the fear of public speaking. The importance of visualization. Another powerful technique is visualization. Visualization involves imagining yourself successfully completing a task before you actually do it. Studies show that athletes who use visualization techniques perform better than those who don't. And guess what? The same applies to public speaking. Before your next presentation or speech, take a few minutes to close your eyes and visualize yourself speaking confidently. Imagine the audience nodding in agreement, smiling, and applauding at the end. Visualize the positive outcome you want. This technique works because it trains your brain to expect success which reduces fear. In fact, research shows that regular visualization can reduce performance anxiety by up to 30%. Here's a concrete example. Let's say you have to give a speech in a large classroom. The night before, find a quiet space, close your eyes, and imagine walking into the room confidently. Picture yourself delivering your speech with clarity and power. Imagine the students nodding along, showing their engagement. This mental rehearsal can make a huge difference in how you feel when you actually stand up to speak. How to speak fearlessly in meetings. Now let's get into meetings. Meetings can be particularly stressful, especially when everyone seems to be more experienced or knowledgeable. But remember, you don't have to know everything to contribute meaningfully. One key strategy for speaking fearlessly in meetings is to start small. You don't have to give a long speech every time. Start by asking questions or making brief comments. For example, instead of worrying about how to respond to every point made, focus on one or two key points you can contribute to. This could be as simple as saying, "I agree with what John mentioned earlier," and adding a short statement about why you agree. Over time, your confidence will build, and you'll feel more comfortable speaking up in meetings. Another technique is to prepare in advance. If you know the topics that will be discussed, take a few minutes beforehand to think about your input. Write down a few notes and rehearse them mentally. This way, you won't feel like you're on the spot when it's your turn to speak. Let me share another real-life example. I used to work with someone who was always quiet in meetings. He told me it was because he felt his English wasn't good enough. But over time, he started preparing short comments before each meeting. He wrote down key points he wanted to share and rehearsed them. Slowly, he started speaking more and more, and eventually, he became one of the most vocal participants in our meetings. It wasn't about suddenly becoming fearless. It was about taking small steps, preparing, and building confidence. Conclusion. So, as we wrap up today's session, I want to leave you with a few key takeaways. Fear of public speaking is normal, but it doesn't have to hold you back. By preparing, focusing on your audience, using techniques like deep breathing and visualization, and taking small steps to build your confidence, you can overcome this fear and speak fearlessly, whether in class, at work, or in any social setting. Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. Every time you speak up, you're getting better. So, don't let fear keep you silent. The world needs to hear your voice. Thanks for tuning in to this session of Easy English Stories Home. If you found this session helpful, be sure to subscribe and share it with anyone who could benefit from these strategies. Until next time, keep practicing, keep growing, and most importantly, keep speaking fearlessly.